my name is Michelle. I'm a stay-at-home mom in the New York City area. My husband, Joe, is an ordinary office worker who married me. His co-worker, back in our office days, and our son, Mike, is just an ordinary elementary school student. In other words, we are a family that's utterly normal, the kind you'd find anywhere. I've spent my days living in such a typical household. Indeed, as a typical stay-at-home mom, I naturally thought of my current life as nothing out of the ordinary. While I wasn't significantly discontent, I also didn't particularly feel grateful for each day. However, that all changed with one utterly abnormal incident. It all started with just one phone call. Let's first go back to that time. On that day, a holiday, me, Joe, and Mike were all at home together. While we were all watching TV together in the living room, lounging on the sofa, Joe's smartphone rang. But when Joe answered the call, for some reason, he seemed a bit restless, different from usual. What on earth is making him so fidgety? I wondered, completely unaware of the situation. Eventually, Joe came back into the living room after finishing the call. "Oh, honey, who was that call from, and what was it about?" "Oh, just a work thing from my boss." "A work call from your boss? You seemed a bit uneasy for that, didn't you?" Then, for a moment, I felt Joe's expression stiffen. At the time, I thought it was just my imagination, but yeah, actually, it was a call from a boss I'm not too fond of, haha. "Oh, that's unfortunate, especially since it's our day off. Seriously, it's such a hassle, haha." Even as I said that, I felt a sense of unease about Joe. Joe and I met 15 years ago. We were both 25 at the time. Joe was handsome, tall, and worked at a well-known company, the epitome of an ideal man. Therefore, when I first met him as a colleague at the same workplace, I was already starting to have feelings for him. And it turns out that Joe had feelings for me too. This might sound self-flattering, but I was known for my looks and style, and I worked at the same well-known company, which probably caught his eye. After that, things between Joe and I progressed smoothly. We fell in love, got married, and before we knew it, we were living together as a family of 3 with our son, Mike. Up until Mike became an elementary student, Joe hadn't really caused any problems. But in hindsight, there were many things that seemed unnatural. For instance, whenever I planned a trip abroad with my friend Taylor, somehow Joe's business trips would often coincide. At first, I thought it was just coincidence and didn't pay it much mind. However, as these incidents kept happening, they gradually began to seem more mysterious. Eventually, these odd occurrences seemed to stop, and I had completely forgotten about them, assuming they were just coincidences. This incident has brought those past issues back to the surface. So, I can't help but think that this series of events might be something bad for both Joe and I. And that's why Joe might have stopped and kept it hidden until now. But, as I have no concrete evidence, I've avoided confronting Joe about it. Still, I thought it wasn't right to just let it go, so I deliberately tried to mention it to Joe without sounding nosy. "That boss you don't like, what kind of person are they? Is there some old guy giving you a hard time?" "Yay, exactly. We clash over everything. It's so frustrating, haha." What's with this unnaturally high tension? Then, I brought up the so-called boss again. If they're that unpleasant, you wouldn't want to see their face, right? Of course, seriously, I wish they'd never show their face again, haha. This just seems too strange, too wrong, and I'm overthinking it. Oh, maybe I should have just let it go. given Joe's odd tension, it doesn't seem like it's just an unpleasant boss but rather someone else. I can't help but link past and present events, leading me to think about something I've been faintly aware of for a while now. Yes. Specifically, the possibility that Joe might be seeing another woman. Though I'd rather it not be true, with everything that's happened, I can't help but suspect. Until now, there have been no incidents like finding long hairs on Joe's suit or smelling women's perfume. But now, I can't help but wonder if those were just clever diversions to deceive me. Huh, what's up with you? You seem down. Not particularly. I'm not thinking about anything. Is that so? Well, if that's the case, it's all good then. Once I started doubting, I couldn't help but find Joe more and more suspicious. On one hand, I feel like I should stop prying further, but naturally, I also want to know the truth. That's right, if it's all just in my head. That would be for the best, and even if my worries are true, it's much better than being kept in the dark. With that thought, and considering this wasn't the first time, and there were past issues, I decided to take action. I made sure Joe was headed to the bathroom for a shower, then, making sure Mike couldn't hear, I quietly started talking on the phone to Taylor. Hey, do you have a moment right now? I do. What's up? Thinking of going on another trip. Actually, it's about our trips together, but it's kind of a downer topic. What do you mean? I spilled everything to Taylor. How every time we went on a trip abroad, somehow Joe's business trips would coincide. And how just recently, a call from a nasty boss came in, and Joe's behavior was off. After listening silently for a while, Taylor finally spoke up, gravely. You know, this is really hard to say. It's okay, don't hold back, tell me what you're thinking. In my opinion, you know, I'm thinking, maybe Joe has got a woman on the side. I thought so. I was prepared for this, so I didn't lose my composure. Taylor probably guessed that I was suspicious. She seemed pretty nonchalant about it. Now, this Taylor is not just anyone. Believe it or not, she's a detective. The reason I decided to call her wasn't just because we're close, but also because her professional skills were very much needed. In the past, whenever I had a problem, Taylor was the one who would solve it for me. But those were just trivial things, like complaints about a boyfriend I dated back in college, nothing serious. But this situation is entirely unprecedented. Taylor, without any hesitation, asked me, "You already think he's totally guilty, don't you?" "No, I just think something's off." "Then why not hire me to look into it? You were expecting this, weren't you?" Indeed, as Taylor said, I had anticipated this, so I decided to hire her to investigate Joe. After a while, I could hear humming, and an oblivious Joe came out of the bathroom, steam trailing behind him. "What's up? You seem a bit stiff. Everything okay?" "Do I? No, I'm fine." "Well, all right then. I'm gonna head to bed soon. Good night." "Oh, I see. Good night." And so, I took the first step towards clearing up my confusion. But at the same time, I was about to have an experience far beyond the ordinary. Later, I went to attend Mike's class observation day at his elementary school. During the observation, there was the usual event where children read essays expressing gratitude towards their parents. After several other kids, it was finally Mike's turn. What would he say about me, and about Joe? My mom always makes my favorite meals at home, and because she's always so kind, I really love her. Oh my, that's enough to make one tear up, truly. My dad also always plays catch with me, and I really love him for that. With that, Mike's reading was over, and the classroom erupted in applause from the students, the teacher, and the parents. But with Joe currently under investigation by a detective for infidelity, and me being the one who hired them, I couldn't help but have a bittersweet expression as the class observation came to an end. Then Jessica, Mike's teacher, approached me. "Hey there, Mom, Mike's essay was so heartfelt, wasn't it great? Thank you so much, he's always in your care." Jessica, who became Mike's homeroom teacher this spring, is a woman of my age. She had visited our home for a parent-teacher visit before. That time, Joe happened to be home, and the three of us had a pleasant meeting. Usually, home visits can be a bit tense, no matter who the teacher is. But Jessica was different. She was very friendly, so I thought we would get along well with her. And of course, it was the same this time. No, if anything, I'm the one who's grateful. Take care. Yes. As I headed home with mixed feelings, I got a notification from my messenger app, and sight was from Taylor. What could it be? It must be about that case, right? Maybe the results are out. The message said the results were in, and she wanted me to come to her office. Even though I was the one who asked for it, I'm dreading the results. So, I ended up going to Taylor's home office, and the report was half expected, but yes, Joe was guilty. To cut to the chase, Joe has, well, an affair partner. Though I had a feeling, I sort of knew, but hearing it said out loud, it's hard. And here's the thing. It's not just a simple affair. I think this is going to be a big shock for you, so please brace yourself, okay? Go on. But the details Taylor revealed were shockingly unexpected. Turns out, Joe's affair was with none other than Jessica. You're telling me he's been having an affair with Mike's teacher? Indeed, thinking back, there were several red flags about Jessica. When she visited our home, she got along well with Joe, including me. Initially, I thought she was just being friendly and fun, but now it seems she was too familiar. Especially with Joe. Even earlier, Jessica said to me, "Not at all. If anything, I'm the one who's indebted to you." But what did that mean? It's impossible for Jessica, as the homeroom teacher, to be indebted to her student, Mike. Does that mean she accidentally lets slip that she's indebted to Joe? So, what's the deal with Joe and that teacher? I hate to ask for the gory details, but I can't not know, you know. Well, you might think the home visit sparked their affair. But it turns out they've been involved with each other long before that. I was speechless. How could that be? I had thought that there may have been other women, and Jessica was just the latest fling. What do you mean? Jessica first came to our house for Mike's home visit this year, right? Joe shouldn't have known her before that. So how could they have been involved before then? Well, actually, according to Taylor's investigation, the two of them were classmates in high school. I met Joe at work and left my job when we got married, so of course, I didn't know him during high school. And I had never seen Joe's yearbook before, so the first time I saw Jessica was during the home visit. That's why I found it odd that I had never seen Joe's yearbook. Especially since he often showed me pictures of his old friends. Why wouldn't he show me his yearbook, I wondered. Maybe he was hiding it somewhere because it had Jessica in it. So, has he been with Jessica all along, playing me and her at the same time until we got married? No, it's not like that. He was indeed with Jessica for a long time. But when you came into the picture, he broke it off with Jessica and switched to you. However, he still had feelings for Jessica and ended up getting back together with her, turning it into an affair. Either way, it doesn't change the fact that he's been cheating on me with Jessica for a long time. Whoa, getting mad at me won't solve anything. Sorry. Seriously, what a guy. But Joe must have been surprised. Never would he have imagined his affair would end up being his son's teacher. Yet, Joe didn't seem too disturbed by Jessica during the home visit, did he? Does that mean he had shown Jessica photos of me and Mike beforehand? And she knew she was going to be Mike's teacher and informed Joe about it in advance. Either way, I can't forgive either Joe or Jessica. No, they are both absolutely unforgivable. Taylor, what should I do from here? I just want to cut that man out of my life. But when I think about Mike, he's still in elementary school, you know, being a single mom seems so tough. And he's such a daddy's boy, gets so happy playing catch with him. I know he's a daddy's boy, you've told me, and it's tough. Well, I'm a detective, so all I can do is investigate. The rest is up to you, whether you talk it out with Joe, hire a lawyer, and decide what to do. I thanked Taylor profusely and left her home office. I now know that those business trips Joe took during our vacations were actually rendezvous with Jessica. And those calls he claimed were from a nasty boss were probably date arrangements. Considering the frequency of these, and likely many more secret meetings, emotionally, I'm far beyond being able to forgive him. But thinking of Mike, as terrible a father as Joe might be, the idea of just divorcing seems complicated. What should I do? After much thought, I decided to endure things with Joe until Mike graduates middle school, and then divorce. And so, I decided to keep quiet about it to Joe, for now. Honestly, I felt nothing towards Joe, but I am a mother before I am a wife. Yet, who would have thought that even more misfortune would befall me after that? Since Mike was born, we had been living without any major issues, so this shock was indeed huge for me. My eating habits deteriorated. I made sure Joe and Mike had something to eat, but I hardly ate anything myself. Hey, you haven't been eating much lately. What's up, you okay? Oh great, as if it's not your fault I can't eat. It's nothing, I'm eating just fine, don't worry. Oh, all right then, if you say so. It's not okay at all, seriously. Hey, Mom, you look pale. Are you really okay? I'm really fine. Mike, you should go study, okay? This isn't good. Even Mike is starting to notice some things off. But the thought of living with this guy for another 3 years, even for Mike's sake, just the thought of it makes me shudder. After all, he's a man who's been involved with his own son's teacher. To continue this sham marriage with such a person, honestly, it makes me feel sick. And amidst all this, I finally fell ill. One holiday, Joe was busy preparing from the morning. He said he was going on a company trip today. When I first heard about it last week, I suspected it was an excuse to meet Jessica again. But then, I discreetly called his company and confirmed there really was a company trip. So, it seems it wasn't a lie. There are still employees there who were his colleagues. And occasionally they go out for drinks, so I can check Joe's alibi in this way. Of course, I only started checking his alibi after discovering the affair. Oh, how I wish I had started doing this sooner. But as I was thinking this and tried to stand up, I suddenly collapsed, unable to move. Oh no, anemia, my poor diet is taking its toll. What should I do? My consciousness is fading. Then, Mike, who was nearby, noticed and started to panic. Mom, are you okay, Mom? I'm conscious and desperately want to respond, but I'm too dizzy to even open my mouth. Mike starts panicking and calls for Joe. Dad. Huh, what's up? Come here, it's Mom. What's with Mom, huh? Joe, coming from the next room to check, notices for the first time that I've collapsed. as I drift in and out of consciousness. I can barely make out Joe and Mike's faces, hear their voices, but still, I can't muster the energy to reply. But Joe was not just terrible in his affairs with the opposite sex, he was an absolute scoundrel through and through. Hey, what are you doing lying down here? I've got to go, you know. All right, I'm off. Take care, okay? Seriously, what is he thinking, leaving his wife collapsed on the floor, this man? As expected, Mike, having witnessed this, became distraught and snapped at him. Dad, what are you doing? Take Mom to the hospital, quick. But Joe's response was that of a man who had lost all reason. Look, I'm really sorry, but I've got a company trip now, so no can do. You'll understand when you're older, but adults have their social obligations, you know, so I'm leaving Mom in your hands, okay? But Mom's collapsed, isn't she? It's okay. Mom's just a little anemic, you know. Haven't there been times before when I've felt dizzy, so no worries. Indeed, as he said, I do have a tendency towards anemia and have felt dizzy many times before. I've been to the hospital for checks multiple times, and each time, they've said there was nothing wrong. So, it's thought that my current state is due to my usual condition, worsened by poo-eating habits. But surely, even with a company trip looming, this response to the situation is unbelievable. Finally, Joe just left the house. Poor Mike was left behind in the house. Of course, it wasn't just Mike who was left behind, I was too. And so, Joe abandoned Mike and me to go on his company trip. Despite appearances, he was actually using the supposed company trip as a cover to go on a romantic getaway with Jessica. Even I believed the company trip was genuine, never imagining he'd use it as a cover for his affair. Man, she's so dumb to think I went on the company trip. I told the office I was sick. You shouldn't say things like that. I'm feeling guilty enough as it is. Ha, that's rich coming from you, all smiles over there. Ha, I wish I could just divorce her and remarry you, but it's such a hassle. True, you work for a well-known company, and a divorce over an affair could really mess up your promotions. Exactly. If it weren't for that, with my salary, I could easily handle alimony and child support. You're truly despicable. Like you're one to talk. Thus, a week passed, and Joe was at the end of his supposed company trip. The week's gone by already. I really wish I could stay with you longer, but I said I was on a company trip, so I guess I have to go back home. How? So, your wife believes you were on a company trip. You really are wicked. You're one to talk, calling in sick to skip school, and having an affair with a student's dad. Pretty bold. Despite such morally questionable exchanges, Joe suddenly remembered that he had left me alone at home for a week and started to feel anxious. I wonder if Michelle's okay. Huh, okay about what? Didn't I tell you? She collapsed right before I left, and I just ignored it and went on. What? That sounds really bad, doesn't it? No worries, she's always been prone to anemia and getting dizzy, so she's definitely fine, but just in case, I'll call home. And so, Joe finally made a call home. Hey, Mike. Dad, Moms. Hey, you're speaking too softly, I can't hear you well, what are you saying? After that, Mom, what happened to Mom? I'm coming home now. Oh right, Mom had collapsed. So, is Mom okay? However, the response Mike gave was unbelievably shocking. We're about to burn it. For a moment, Joe was confused and couldn't understand what Mike was trying to say. Me collapsed, left alone while he went on a trip, Mike on the phone saying we're going to burn it. Naturally, Joe assumed that I had passed away and that we were preparing for cremation. What? Don't burn. Hey, Mike. But Mike, feeling uneasy about Joe having left me alone, hung up the phone. Panicked, Joe abandoned Jessica and dashed out of the hotel, rushing back home. Finally, gasping for breath, Joe burst into the living room at full speed. Hey, Mike, where's Mom? But I was just suffering from anemia due to poor diet, alive and well, much to Joe's dismay. You then collapsed to his knees. What? You're alive? Hey, Mike, what's with the misleading talk? What do you mean going to burn? After that, I tried to say that Mom got better, but making me worry like that. However, for Joe, this did not mark the end of the matter. Instead, he was about to go through hell. Just now, your boss, the department head, came by and said, Joe, you're fired, LOL. Here's what happened. The department head found Joe, who was supposed to be sick and absent from the company trip, at the trip destination. Incredibly foolishly, Joe was so engrossed in his affair that he ended up going on a love trip at the same company trip destination. LOL. So, when the suspicious department head came to our house, he found Taylor and me discussing the investigation results, leading to all of his misdeeds being exposed to the company. LOL. In fact, Taylor had continued investigating Joe after that incident, tailing him, taking photos, and sending the evidence to our house every time. This evidence had piled up like a mountain, and it too was seen by the department head. LOL. No way. The department head, who had been through a divorce due to his wife's affair, is strict about these matters. LOL. It's been decided you'll be demoted to the document sorting department as a lesson to other employees. LOL. Joe's screams echoed through our house. LOL. Now, Joe was nothing but a victim of his own actions, but there was still a humorous twist to this series of disasters. LOL. As mentioned before, Joe had a terrible misunderstanding about what Mike had said. So, what was Mike's "I'm going to burn it now" all about? Let's delve into that. Of course, what Mike intended to burn was not me, given how I live my life. Actually, Mike was trying to burn the infidelity evidence collected by Taylor. As mentioned before, Mike is, after all, a daddy's boy. So, in his own way, he had a hunch about what his father had been doing behind the scenes, but was still nobly trying to defend his lousy dad. Mike found the notorious evidence and intuitively realized Joe was in trouble. He thought of destroying the evidence, but Joe himself told him not to burn it. The understanding of burning wasn't shared between them, leading to this tragedy. Following his father's orders, Mike had to abandon the idea of hiding the evidence. And as a result, the evidence remained. And the worst possible timing occurred when the company's department head came by, uncovering everything. This turn of events led to Joe's demotion. That's the story. LOL. What an ironic tale, isn't it? And so, through these events, I've come to learn just how wonderful it is to be ordinary. Well, Mike, thanks to you, Mom could decide without much hesitation to divorce Dad soon. Thank you. LOL. I used to love Dad, but after finding out everything, I've had enough. I'm totally for the divorce, and I'm not sad at all. Of course, I'm sticking with Mom. Thank you. I was honestly scared you'd want to stay with him since you were such a daddy's boy. That man is no longer a father to me. I had a feeling there were other women before. But leaving Mom when she fell ill, and the evidence in those documents, really disappointed me. I thought about helping him still, but that last pathetic scream was the last straw. Oh my, you should have given up on him when Mom fell ill or at the evidence, shouldn't you? LOL. Yeah, I'll be careful from now on. Well, not like I'll see him again, lol. By the way, the other culprit, Jessica, also met a terrible fate. After Joe had gone running, she was kicked out of the hotel where she had been staying at. Naturally, Jessica, who was shocked, had hurried after Joe. When she arrived at our place, Joe was in the midst of screaming. She guessed everything and tried to flee, but I caught her, lol. Jessica's panic at that moment was unparalleled. What? Why are you screaming? Oh dear, teacher, what's the rush? A surprise home visit to our house. No, it's just that, this is. So the company trip was a lie. And you were on a love trip with Joe, weren't you? Is that it? That's why you followed him here. Hey Joe, what's this all about? Explain yourself to me right now. Joe, who had been utterly confused up to that point, seemed to have given up on life and confessed everything about the love trip. Jessica, with nowhere left to turn, was forced to kneel right there and then, lol. Afterwards, as one would expect, Jessica resigned from the school upon request, lol. I heard from Mike later that, given the circumstances, she left without being able to say goodbye to the children. Packing her things and fleeing the school, which, despite her being an adversary, felt somewhat pitiful, lol. Now, at home, with Joe gone, I'm having a conversation with Taylor, who played a significant role in this whole uproar. I never wanted to learn the value of being ordinary in such a way. But the real problem was thinking that an abnormal environment was normal. After all, getting a divorce and leaving that abnormal environment behind means we can now look forward to wonderfully normal days ahead. Indeed, when you think about it that way, there's really no problem at all. As I pondered the new daily life that Mike and I were about to start, I let out a great stretch.